Hello and welcome to our program. I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Today, we're talking about a very important topic related to our community, the country, and of course, the economic impact it has on all of us. Joining us today is none other than Congresswoman Sylvia R. Garcia. She's representing the 29th District of Texas. Good morning, Congresswoman.
Good morning. It's great that the weather has settled and it looks like we're going to have a great day today.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for your dedication to our community for so very long and all the role and impact you've had on the Hispanic Chamber and the broader business community. But let's get started with DACA. For folks who may not be familiarized with it, it is being threatened, and certainly the administration is implementing a crackdown across the country, which includes DACA. And we know that we're trying to protect those DACA recipients. And it's not just individuals, but the contributions that they make economically and contributions to our civic community. So if we can start there.
Well, just the background first. DACA is sometimes spoken interchangeably with dreamers, because DACA recipients, it's a protection that was a law that was signed by President Obama to protect all our unaccompanied minors that were coming into this country. And some accompany, they come with their parents. They've known other the country other than this one. In fact, I've had many of them tell me that, if they went to their home countries, they wouldn't know what to do, because some of them, frankly, don't even speak Spanish because they grew up here. They're native Texans or native USA. So DACA is a program. It's a deferred action for children, which means we defer deportation and give them protections while they're here. And that program has been in existence since the Obama days, but it's been in legal jumbo. It's been attacked by Republicans, and they have filed lawsuits. And in fact, the case, there's a case right here in Houston, is the case that we're waiting on to tell us whether or not DACA will be able to continue. Because for us in Texas, it means a lot. It's over 400,000 dreamers, again, that have lived here in Texas since they were small. They came with their parents. They have no choice. Laura, it's incredible to me when people say, "Oh no, send the children home too." Children don't have a choice. If you tell your kids, well, now your kids are a little teenager and up, so maybe they wouldn't listen. But when they're 5 and 6 and you tell them, "Come on, we're going to grandma's," they don't have a choice. They got to get in the car with you. They got to go to grandma's. Well, many of these folks came just like that. They traveled with their families, and they've been here. And in the Houston area, it's about 100,000. And it's been noted by folks that study these things that if the dreamers were to lose their protections, we would lose jobs in Texas to the tune of 2,600 jobs a month. 2,600 jobs a month would be lost here in Texas because they support every industry. Many people look at the immigrant population and think construction, landscaping, and road building. We're everywhere during the pandemic, but for the dreamers, we wouldn't have had half the staff still in the hospitals. When I was in the White House and did an event for the DREAM Act, I met a young man who was in our fire department. They're everywhere. So it's about giving them protections and giving them a pathway to citizenship. They've been here many years. They deserve citizenship.
And what people don't realize is they've graduated from high school. Many of those have graduated from college. They are the most vetted people in this country.
Absolutely. And that's a great point because, again, it's not what people think. And you'd be surprised, Laura, that, or should I say Dr. Murillo, what the polls show that 70 to 80% of Americans, public wants dreamers to have protections. Even over 50% of Republicans, just a little over 50, but I'll take it. Also, when polled, should dreamers be made citizens? They say yes, because dreamers, again, are everywhere. They're contributing to society. They're your neighbor. You see them at church, at the grocery store. They go to school with your kids. The average age of a dreamer when they first got here was 6 years old. Again, why are we trying to punish 6-year-olds? They don't have choices. They came here with their parents. They know no other country. In their heart, in their soul, in their mind, they're American.
So we know that there's a mass deportation plan in effect as we speak, and people are walking around in fear. And what many people perhaps do not understand is that economic impact and the unintended consequences to our workforce. Congresswoman, please help people understand the implications of this.
Well, let me check my notes here to just be precise on the numbers. Okay, this is straight out of studies that have been done, many by GAO, which is a federal agency itself. DACA recipients contribute 6.2 billion. That's B with billion in federal taxes and 3.1 billion in state and local taxes. That's another myth. Oh, they don't pay taxes. They're freeloaders. No, they pay taxes. They pay local taxes. Every time they gas up, they pay the gasoline tax. Okay, every time they go to a concert, they pay all those fees and taxes. They're consumers just like we are. In Texas, dreamers add 16 billion because Texas, I think, has the second highest number of dreamers in the country. So they make great contributions to Texas. And again, if DACA were to end, Texas would lose 2,600 jobs a month. That's a lot of jobs lost. And, I was, pushed by, I had a press conference last week on this topic, and I was pushed by one of the conservative reporters, like, well, but they're taking jobs from people, and I said, no, any American can go apply for any job they want right now. DACA has nothing to do with it. It's not going to help it or hurt it. They're free to apply for any of these jobs. The question is, they don't choose to. And our dreamers and our immigrants do perform those jobs. And if they didn't, there would be more lost jobs. And I use the example, Laura, and I'm sure the home builders here in town can tell you more. I know they're probably a part of your chamber. If you have a house to build, and you can't find the roofer, which again is sort of the immigrant labor section, or the helpers, well, then you may not be able to build that house. So that delays all those businesses that supply the tools, the lumber, the screws, the tool, everything else to build that house will not have a job, will not have that purchasing power, because you're not building the house because you don't have the labor. The White House has finally heard from farmers, restaurant owners, and hotel owners that please, we don't have enough help. We need the labor. Don't hurt us. So you may have heard that although he's got this grandiose deportation plans, he's now saying that he doesn't want to go after and hurt the farmers, hotels, and restaurants. I would submit to you that there's going to be more additions to that list before it's over, because I know I held a small business roundtable, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And one of the things some of the restaurant owners told me that it's not just not having the workers, it's people being afraid to get out of the house to even come to eat at the restaurant. So they're losing revenue to the tune of 20 to 30% this year than last year, because so many people in our area, Dr. Murillo, you know my district, it's 77% Latino. Probably 30% of that 70% is unauthorized. So they're afraid. They're staying home. They're not being consumers. It's hurting business. They're not being workers. It's hurting business. They're not going to school. Eventually, that will hurt business because we won't have an educated, trained workforce. But more importantly, it's just inhumane. It's more than the jobs. It's about people. And as the Pope said, and I love our new Pope, we're all God's children, and we should be welcoming. We should treat people with dignity and respect. because they are human beings, and by and large, more than the majority of the people coming to our country are really here to seek a better life and to work and be able to send money back home. They're not the rapists and the murderers and all those people that are described by the White House. Yes, there's a few of those. There's probably just as, the same percent of those than there is crimes and criminals here in Houston. It's really no different. Every crate will have a bad apple. Remember when they told us that in elementary school? Well, every crate does have a bad apple, but you can't hurt the other 99 apples because of the actions of one.
Absolutely. And so we have been working very closely with organizations at the national, local, state level to make sure, especially the business community, is putting pressure on the White House, on our administration, anyone who will listen, because there are so many unintended consequences. Congresswoman, what advice do you have for people who might be interested in advocating? What do you suggest to them?
Well, there's a lot of volunteer work that can be done. There's a number of people here in Houston, associations and nonprofits that help and assist people with their applications, people going through the process. This afternoon, I'll be going to the immigration court here in Houston because the new twist, it's all about numbers. The White House promised mass deportations. Their goal, I think, is 3,000 per day. They're not getting there because people know their rights. People stay home. They know that if someone knocks on their door, that unless they have a warrant, and that's general advice for anybody comes knocking on your door and doesn't have a warrant, you don't have to let them in, whether it's an immigration lawyer or HPD or anybody. I mean, it's without a warrant, they are not allowed entry. It's up to you. So it's about people knowing their rights. But what they're doing is they found that just going hit and miss here and there based on old addresses doesn't really work because people move around a lot. It's a very mobile population. So then they started going after the TPS and DED holders who have some authority to be here for a year. And I began to revoke those, and now we're picking them up. Now what they're doing is going where no one else has gone, because for years, ICE had a regulation, Dr. Murillo, that specifically said that there should be safe places in a community where people should be able to gather and feel safe. That included churches, schools, hospitals, I think funeral homes, weddings. I know I argued that we needed add quinceañeras, because those should be places where people go and come freely, right? Well, the White House has overturned that. He has said, no, we're going to schools, we're going to churches, we're going to hospitals, we're going, courthouses. Courthouse is the other big one. They're going everywhere. There is no exception. And they're going to churches. They are going to schools. And now they're going to courthouses. And what they're doing is a ploy. You go in there, Laura, let's say it's your turn, it's your time today to go to the court that I'm going to visit, to go in and check in to make sure that they know where you are. You're being compliant. That's what you're supposed to do under the law. So you go, you appear, the government moves to dismiss your case. So they dismiss it. So the minute you walk out the door, you're unauthorized and don't have any protections. So they wait for you outside the door and pick you up. And they're not, it's without notice. They don't care if you say, wait, let me just call the school because I have 3 kids there, or wait because I have my elderly parent at the hospital and I need to go by and pick her up. They don't care. They're separating families. They're in some cases, they're even taking children.
And thank you for your leadership. I know the town halls have helped tremendously. You put together a card in terms of knowing your rights and that communication with the broader community. And we need people to speak up. We need people to make phone calls, as you mentioned, especially those with influence with this administration. It is going to absolutely have dire consequences for our economy, not to mention, most importantly, it's just wrong. That is not the country that we should have, and that's not the way we should operate. Congresswoman, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I just want to clear up a couple of other myths because I think sometimes even members of our community get sucked on and this whole idea that they're cutting that they're cutting Medicaid or they're looking at Medicaid because of fraud, waste, and abuse, and some of that fraud is that illegal aliens are getting Medicaid. That is false. It is so false. I bet you we probably can't even find one person who's undocumented that gets Medicaid because the laws are very strict for almost all our programs. The question is there if you're a U.S. citizen. Now, there may be a special program for a refugees program, but that's separate and apart from qualifying for something. So the person who's coming across the border, whether it's the southern border, the northern border, or by plane and just overstays, they're not eligible, quite frankly, for a damn thing unless it's through the detention center where they are holding them and they provide those services. But eligibility, whether it's for housing, for food stamps, all of those programs have a citizenship test. Now, there's a little wrinkle for housing if there is like 4 people in the house that are citizens and 2 that are not. They may provide housing, but it's done on a pro rata basis. So that in this case, a family of 6 and 4 are citizens, 2 are not, they would get 4/6 of the voucher, if you will, and the other, and not for the 2/6 because it is meant to cover for the citizen children in the house. So it's always bothered me that people think that they're here just for the giveaways and that they get all these things. That is false. And the last point, again, to just underscore it, in the end, this is about how to treat people. It's about who we are as a country, as you said, and who we should be. And it's a moral. It's immoral. It's about humanity. It's about making sure that we treat people as we would want them to treat us. And I think people kind of forget that. They start all the political rhetoric. And in the end, we need to remember that this is about human beings. And one of my favorite signs that I've ever seen at a protest is one that says, God did not create illegals. He just didn't. We're all children of God. We're all equal.
Well, thank you and your team for your leadership, all that you've done to make sure that you are advocating for us every day and meeting with constituents, our business community, and also for your leadership as being among the founders of this great chamber that every day tries to live up to that expectation that you all set decades ago. Congresswoman Garcia, thank you so very much.
Thank you for the invite. And if anyone has any questions, they can certainly call our office. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Hello, this is Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. One of the things that your chamber does every day is that we collaborate at the local, state, and national level with other organizations, with other individuals that are doing important work that connect directly to business, to the economy, and a strong workforce. Today, I have the pleasure of visiting with Glenn Hammer, and he is the president and CEO of the Texas Association of Business. He, the team, their board, do a phenomenal job of making sure that Texans continue to do well, that our economy remains strong. Having said that, many opportunities and also, of course, many challenges. So he's going to give us an update and talk to us a little bit more about what he's seen across Texas and how this state can continue to be prosperous. Glenn, thanks so much for joining us.
Doctor, great to be on the show. And I want to thank you for being an extraordinary leader and a model when it comes to collaboration. You were with us on our trip to Mexico City during the inauguration of President Scheinbaum. And it was fun rolling with you because you're a celebrity. People know who you are and they respect you, and you added a ton to our trip that focused on trade and other important issues for the bilateral relationship.
Well, thank you, Glenn. You know, we have a very small team here at this chamber and an extraordinary board of directors, and one in common, of course, Massey Villarreal, who's been a leader not only in Texas, but across the country. And leaders that you have, such as Massey and others, really make the work that we do something that is a collaboration, but also heavy lifting, right? And so in Texas especially, we just wrapped up the legislative term. So why don't you tell us and provide us, please, just a quick update of what you have
Well,
seen from the legislature?
and I have to say, I'm glad you mentioned Massey, who was our chair for 2 years, the Babe Ruth of chamber chairs. He's chaired 4 chambers. We think that's a national world record. We feel we had a very successful legislative session, both on offense and defense, if I could say, using that some football terminology. On offense, for the great businesses that you represent, probably the most important thing that happened was the exemption for personal property taxes. Sometimes it's called the inventory tax, was increased from $2,500 to $125,000. For a lot of small businesses, that's going to be a $2,500 tax cut. So that's important. There were a number of other important efforts. This was a big session for infrastructure. But and Houston plays a huge role. By the time we wake up and by the time we go to sleep, Texas will have added another 1,500 people. So what does that need? It means we need more water, we need more energy, we need more roadways, we need more port infrastructure, and the legislature delivered on that. We also know we're in the age of innovation. And I mentioned infrastructure. So we'll be investing more in energy, including advanced nuclear, which is important for the Houston region, particularly as you get some of these big data center deals. But also important is research and development. And one of the key things that this legislature did was it basically permanently extended a research and development tax credit, as well as making it more useful for small businesses and entrepreneurs who may not be paying a franchise tax at this point in time.
So for our region, in your opinion, what is something that we want to make sure that stays on the agenda
Yeah,
at the state level that will continue to be pressing and important for our region moving toward the next legislative session?
yeah, you know what? And I'll say, there's also a package that passed that should increase housing affordability for workers. And Houston was often used as a model because Houston has less zoning than pretty much any other city. So when I think of what needs to be on our agenda big time, it's a continued focus on education at all levels. There was a record investment made in the K through 12 system. In fact, $8.5 billion were added to the system to fund teachers, to put additional funds into special education, to do more in literacy. So that was a big deal, and that passed with virtually every member of the legislature supporting it. We're going to continue to make record investments in our great community college system, as well as tightening credentials of value, making sure that the courses offered in our community colleges match the skills that our workforce needs. And also, we're going to continue to see big time investments in higher education, in our university system. And some of those efforts will revolve around AI, quantum computing, space, which is a big deal for the Houston region, semiconductors, and other sorts of high-tech initiatives.
So let's talk about tariffs and trade policy.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. So the tariffs are basically set on the federal level. And I'll first start out by saying, I know you are, Doctor, and we are strong supporters of what I do think is the best trade deal ever negotiated, the US-Mexico-Canada agreement. The key is we need to keep it and we need to build on it. And what is the guts of that agreement? It's tariff-free trade between the top trading partner of Texas, that's Mexico, and our second top trading partner, that's Canada. and there's a lot of turmoil on tariffs. We want to get our tariffs as close to zero as possible. Certainly in the U.S., Mexico, Canada region, but also for the rest of the world. Why? Texas, we're number one in everything, as you know, doctor. We're the number one export state in the country by far. We export more than twice as much as California, for example. But I will put a little bit of an asterisk here. We do support fair trade. You know, the U.S. for decades has had a very, very low tariff rate. We've also had very low barriers. It is time for the rest of the world to also reciprocate. So what we'd love to see is going towards zero tariffs, as well as our trading partners remove unnecessary non-tariff barriers. Like, for example, the EU has all sorts of regulations on intellectual property and technology, and Houston is becoming a tech hotbed. People like saying that the US innovates, the EU regulates. So we're going to need those non-tariff barriers to come down. China is a different story. We need to make sure that the trade with China is more balanced and that our laws, particularly on intellectual property, are being respected, and use a rebalancing so that we can sell more energy goods, more electronics, more stuff that we produce in the state of Texas to China. And I'm optimistic that we will eventually get to that point. But it's like, I was on a plane earlier today. It was very, very bumpy. It was very turbulent. It landed. This tariff situation is going to be turbulent for some time. But I do believe that the administration now, with the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, has the right person at the right time to handle a pretty complicated issue.
Well, we need this plane to land and not crash quickly, safely, and for the interest of all parties involved, as we know that this impacts so many different industries. Everything, as you mentioned, from construction to our ports to almost everything you touch in technology, et cetera. So with your
Amen.
the advocacy that you all are doing, and we hope to do collectively when we fly into DC, and we'll bring chamber members and members from across the state of Texas to DC to continue to advocate pro-business and that we have a strong workforce. So before we wrap up, Glenn, I know.
And our small businesses need that. I mean, on the tariff side, it really, that turbulence, they cannot absorb this, and we don't want to lose small businesses because of this turbulence. So you're 100% right.
And so before we wrap up, anything that you'd like to share as it relates to what is next for the Texas Association of Business?
So just getting out of the legislative session, we're going to spend a lot of time in what we call the interim, making sure that all of these different laws that passed are properly implemented. We're going to continue to work hard on trade, tariffs, as you said. We're going to continue to work hard on immigration reform. We're at about the 13th year anniversary for DACA. These are dreamers. We don't want to get to 14 without some sort of congressional action. We do think that a lot of the tax cuts in the 2017 law need to be extended, particularly those that impact small businesses. So we're going to be more active on the federal level in the interim while we make sure that all these laws that were passed in Texas, many of them great laws, are properly implemented. And I just want to thank you for being such a great leader in the state and a great partner of ours.
Thank you. Glenn, thanks for all that you do, your staff, the board of directors, and of course, so much of what we do is dependent on our sponsors. And so we thank our sponsors for investing in these chambers, in the association, so we can continue to advocate to keep business strong and to make sure that we are growing this great state that is Texas. Glenn, my thanks, and I'll see you soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you for having me on the show.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Today, we have a very special guest representing Centerpoint. He is the EVP Regulatory Government Affairs, Jason Ryan. Jason, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Doctor. It's good to be with you and good to talk to everybody today.
Well, we know the vital role that you all play in our region. You've got a lot of things that you're taking care of, everything from your resiliency plan to replacing poles, trimming trees, preparing us always in advance for anything that comes our way. So let's get started first with your systems resiliency plan.
Sure. Yeah, we're proud to have filed for approval by the state a resilience plan post Hurricane Beryl. Yeah, we heard after the hurricane a call to action from our customers in our community, and the resilience plan is in direct response to that. It is a first of its kind plan to make the Houston area grid the most resilient coastal grid in the country. And we're excited about getting approval of that plan in the coming months and starting to implement it.
Excellent. And what do residents need to know, and how is this going to directly impact them?
Yeah, and so while the resilience plan is a long-term plan, we've already started the work that's going to be part of that longer-term plan. And so our customers and folks out in the community have probably already seen us replacing poles, trimming trees. So you're going to see us out and about doing that very obvious work to enhance resilience for the next number of years as we do that throughout the greater Houston region. There's other work that we're doing that's not as visible, like segmenting the distribution system to reduce the number of outages, say when a car hits a pole, or when a tree falls on a power line, or when a storm comes in. So that's not going to be as visible, but that work is just as important.
Okay, speaking of trees, Houston, we're fortunate we have them all over the place. Unfortunately, we also have a lot of trees that are dying. Once again, what can you say to residents about trees that are dying? And then second part of that question is, how do we know what's their responsibility and what's CenterPoint's responsibility?
That's right. Yeah. Unfortunately, with the severe cold that we had a couple years ago, the severe drought that we had, including last year, and severe rainfall that occurs in our region from time to time, it's been a real strain on trees. So trees that might look healthy might actually be dying, and large branches might be falling in your yard. If your tree is dead, it's probably pretty obvious. There's no leaves on it at this time of year when all of our healthy trees ought to have leaves. So whatever bucket that your tree falls into, whether it looks healthy and you're concerned or it looks dead and you're concerned, you can always feel free to give us a call if the trees are near power lines. And we're happy to send a forester out to take a look at it and trim that tree if it has the risk of falling into one of our power lines. If it's a tree that's further away from the power line, in front of your house, for example, if you have a power line in the back of your house, that is your responsibility as the homeowner. And I would encourage folks to not just think about the risk of trees damaging power lines, although it's incredibly important we address those risks. But trees fall on cars, trees can fall on houses, they can fall on people, and they can also fall on our power lines. So no matter where your problematic trees are on your property, we encourage you to take care of that. Again, if it's a threat to the power line, give us a call at 713-207-2222, and we are happy to send a forester out to take a look.
What else would you like the audience to hear?
Yeah, so as it relates to the poles that we're putting in, that is incredibly visible work. You can see it. I have a sample of one right here. So if you've seen these poles going up in your neighborhood, they are made out of a incredibly strong composite material that will withstand greater wind speed than a normal wooden pole. And unlike a normal wooden pole that might rot over a long period of time, this composite material will be here for many, many decades. And so those poles being replaced right now are part of how we will become the most resilient coastal grid in the country by having these poles that will withstand much greater wind speed than a tree or a pole made out of a tree could withstand.
Jason, our thanks to you and the team as you're preparing us for everyday weather, and then, of course, the unexpected elements that head our way. Our thanks to you and the Centerpoint team. Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo, President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Our partners over at Toyota Center are going to talk to us a little bit about all of the great things they're doing, the important economic impact that it has on our great region, and also the partnership between Toyota Center and your Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Joining us today is none other than Doug Hall. He's got a long title, so it's General Manager, Toyota Center, Senior VP, Clutch City Sports and Entertainment. Doug, thanks for joining us.
Always, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, a lot of things going on at Toyota Center, and some people don't realize that not only is it the home of our very own Houston Rockets, but that throughout the year, that space is converted and used for a variety of things, including a really big concert. So let's start with that exciting announcement.
Really big concert next week. Shakira coming back to Toyota Center after a long time away for 2 nights, Sunday and Monday. And we're excited to have her back in the building. The fan reaction has been fantastic. And, as I've told you before, our Latino music just continues to grow in numbers. And we've had the best 2 years ever in Toyota Center history for concerts in 24 and 25. And next week will be a great part of that.
Absolutely. And you're out there watching, and you'll have time to make sure that you are available for Father's Day to hear Shakira, or the following Monday. Tickets can be purchased there at Toyota Center. Go online and let's support this great, great international global star. It's going to be right here in Houston, Texas. It's always a great experience. And I was recently at Alejandro Fernandez, who you all brought to Houston, and it was exciting to see so many people who were there, and just the variety of different performers that you've brought to Toyota Center, Doug, is really impressive. And it doesn't matter if it's on a Monday, a Sunday, or Saturday, people are showing up, and that's what we want. We want to make sure we support everything that you all are bringing here to our great city. Now, YouTubers, I've not heard of these folks, so educate me, please. They're coming to Toyota Center.
The Dude Perfect show coming in July is just unique. It's one of the truly great kind of entertainment experiences you don't really see anywhere else. Dude Perfect made their fame on YouTube and doing trick shots like basketball and hockey and golf and things you've just never seen and can't believe are real until you see it in person. And I think this is their 3rd time back at Toyota Center. We're going to be sold out in July, and it is a really unique entertainment experience for young and old, from ages 8 to 80 will enjoy Dude Perfect.
So is it a group of people? Is it 2 people?
It's a group of people, five young men, or started young. They're from Texas. As a matter of fact, they're based out of Dallas. A lot of them are Aggies. And so they alternate, do group things, and they do individual things. And again, if you haven't had a chance to see them, you can check them out on YouTube, but more importantly, come see them live at Toyota Center in July.
Well, that sounds very interesting. I'm going to absolutely do that and see what they're all about. Again, that is Dude Perfect. They're coming into town, so July 10th. And everybody loves this one, right? Who has not experienced the Hot Wheels Monster Truck Live Glow and Fire in July? Tell folks about this.
This will be the first time they've been at Toyota Center. Monster trucks come to town in various places, NRG Stadium, but this is unique. This is an arena-based event, and it'll be the first time, and super excited. Again, more of a family entertainment, not so much a late-night concert, but, ages 3 all the way up. So really family-focused, and kids will have a chance to, see some great entertainment. And, the early parties include walks through the floor and to see monster trucks live and in person. And we're excited to bring them here. And we plan on making it an annual event starting this summer.
And what does that conversion look like for Toyota Center?
Well, this one's not on dirt. A lot of the monster trucks and motocross bikes are on dirt. This is on concrete, so it's not a hard conversion for us. But we'll do anything. PBR has been on dirt. A lot of the other dirt events are fun to do, but this one is a little cleaner and easier to maintain. But it'll be exciting.
Sounds like it. And on behalf of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, our board, our staff, our members, sponsors, and others, we want to say thank you, Doug, to you and the entire team over at Toyota Center. You all have been such phenomenal partners, and we want to make sure that all of your events are to capacity. So everyone watching us here on KHOU CBS 11 or on one of the 6 audio stations that are with Audacy Radio, we want you to tune in and make sure that you go out and visit their website so you can buy tickets, so you can get involved. They've got corporate opportunities, ticket sales, all types of things. And so, Doug, to you and your team, we say thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murillo. Get your tickets at access.com or toyotacenter.com. Come see us.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Murillo. Thank you so much for joining us here on CBS and on all 6 Audacy stations. It is my honor to recognize our next Houston legend. He's done so much. He's very highly regarded in the banking industry, and we're happy to have him here speaking to us a little bit about the success of Prosperity Bank, his role, but most importantly, we're here to find out a little bit more about David Zalman. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Laura. I wish that was as good as you. That was so good.
Thank you so much. And I want to make sure I've got my cue card here because you have a very long title. So I want to get it right.
I hope
He is the Senior Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive Officer. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, you have done an extraordinary job
Thank you.
with Prosperity Bank. And it has been certainly eye-opening for me as one of your directors on the bank to learn and see how this bank that is here in our region and in Oklahoma as well, I may add,
Right.
has just grown at such rapid pace in an industry that can be very volatile. So from your perspective, what's been the secret sauce?
Well, if I can, let me start off by just telling you a little bit about me. And when I
Yeah.
tell a little bit about me,
Yeah.
it really tells about the secret sauce in the bank because
Okay.
I really only had 2 jobs in my career. So, I started off selling newspapers. I was always competitive, so I started selling newspapers at 6 years old with my brothers, and we always knew whoever sold the most papers got to be there first. So if you got there first, you got to sell the most because you were first out on the street. So we've always been very competitive. So starting at a very young age, we were always in business, and then I always worked at my dad's gas station, the Gulf service station. And the service stations were different back then than they are today. They did, changed oil and filter and washed cars and sewed tires, and you did just about everything. And so we got a lot of experience working there at the same time. So did that, went to St. Philip's to a Catholic school, growing up for the first 8 years, then public school in my high school years, and then went to the University of Texas, graduated with a BBA in 1978. Came back to work at my dad's station after that. One of the oil field guys that was in a real high position in the oil field said, "You ought to go to that bank in town." He said, "They've had a lot of changeover, a lot of management left." And I said, "Well, okay." So I went, interviewed over there and got a job at the bank there in town. And so I started at 78 and stayed there till 86. And by the time I started in bookkeeping and finished as the chief executive officer at the bank, until 1986. So a real rapid rise right there. It was a small bank, probably about 50 million when I got there and 100 million when I left. And so, and then there was a group out of Houston. You're probably too young, you don't remember this, but the big banks in Houston at that time were Texas Commerce Bank, First City Bank, and Allied Bank. And Allied had a bunch of banks just like we do right now. In fact, I always thought that they were so big. And I look back, they're only about 15 billion. Today we're 40 billion. So, but I thought they were huge at the time. And they were selling some of the outlying banks. And so they sold one of their banks to a group out of Houston who was led by Tracy Rudolph.
Yes.
And in a small town in Edna, Tracy asked me if I would come and interview with their director because they just went through a bunch of change and a lot of people had left. And I said, well, I don't know that I want to go to Edna, a town of 7,000 people or something like that. Nevertheless, I walked in and he must have told all the directors that I took the job, and they started shaking my hand as the president, but the youngest one was 80 years old, so that's how we got started. But anyway, it was an Allied Bank. They bought it from Allied Bank, this group out of Houston, and it was only $40 million at the time in size. And it probably had about 10 to 15 people working. And we had about $1.8 million in capital and about $40 million in assets, and we owed $6 million. So I knew we were going to have to do something. So we tried to build the bank, and we tried to build it first through Victoria. We thought that would be a big market, but that market at that time was really controlled a lot by the First Victoria National Bank, who we have since they have joined us, and Victoria Bank and Trust, who sold to Wells Fargo, and so. We just started going, and that's when the 80s came. That was 87 through 92. The oil crash just came, and the only good thing we had going for us is that we were a small bank, didn't have a lot of capital, but the regulators really loved us. I mean, because we managed the bank pretty good, and they let us do things that probably today that you couldn't do. They let our capital go down. So in that period of time, between 87 in 92, we had a bunch of failed banks, and that helped us get started. And then after that, in 92, we started buying some banks. In 98, we went public on the NASDAQ stock exchange. We were a big $300 million at the time in size. So from 98, we went public in 2001. What really changed our dynamics, because we had a lot of banks around Houston, some in Houston, but we're probably more outreach or more rural in nature. And in 2001, we merged with the bank, Ned Holmes Bank. Ned, you know, he's on our board right now, and Tim Tamanis. They had a bank here called Heritage Bank. It was predominantly in the River Oaks area and in some other areas of town. So that changed the whole dynamics of the bank. It made us, more a metropolitan bank. And then right after that, Ned and I signed the papers. We were $700 million at the time. They were $300 or $400 million. Made us $1.1 billion, and I thought that was just huge at the time. And they said, "Well, you got to get this thing up to $2 billion." I said, "Shh, $2 billion? It took us all these years to get to $1 billion." Long story short, we once we went public and we started doing things, we bought another bank in Dallas, and the first day I announced it, the analyst, our stock went down 10% because they said, "How could you run a bank in Dallas? You're just in Houston." Well, after we did it and went a quarter, 2 quarters, and we did really good at it, everybody loved it. And from then on, we did a lot of banks wanted to join us, still want to join us. So we did a lot of M&A.
Yeah.
And so, the story goes from there. Today, we're a $40 billion bank with about 4,000 people. And we started with about 10 or 15 people and 40 million, and market cap of about $7 billion. And we had $1,600,000. So we've had a tremendous amount of success, and that's all been a part of. So my life has always been a part of this at the same time.
Yes,
so,
and recognized by Forbes for the last 10 years.
Every year since they started, we've been
Yes.
recognized as one of the best banks in the U.S. Yeah.
And that's a huge, as you said, reach in terms of people.
Yeah.
This industry, it's so competitive.
It is. I'm surprised sometimes by the success we've had. It's been very nice. So it's been very good. I've seen a lot of people that you as you see in your profession, you've had people that come in and really help you. We've had a lot of the people that I started with. I laugh sometimes. One of the guys, we really didn't have money, and so I gave him a stock certificate. And when we first started, because I couldn't pay him a whole lot of money, and he with his nose like that, he threw it back at me and said, "Why'd you do that?" He said, I had one of those before. They don't mean anything, And so that 10,000 shares, I think, of stock that I had given him we split 4 for 1, another 2 for 1, and he ended up with about $15-20 million worth of stock. So a lot of guys made a lot of money, and they're retired, and I'm still working. So,
Well, we're glad you're still working, and it's so important to just really share with the folks who are watching us. I think at this point in your career, you could say, you know what, it's been a great ride. You've been extraordinarily successful. But you still show up, and you're very competitive. I don't think most people really have that true sense, because you seem very calm on the surface, but you wouldn't be where you are without that competitive nature, which you explained came from childhood.
Right.
So what keeps you motivated and going every day?
Well, your first statement's exactly right. In fact, my wife asks me all the time, why don't you just quit and let's go travel and retire and all that? And I don't know that I would be happy doing that. I really, I've never felt like I really had to work, because I've enjoyed banking so much. It's never really felt like a job. And I had this dream of building something. I remember the Texas Commerce Banks, the First City, and the Allied. And I remember you had something that was really Texas. And I really wanted to build that again. I still do. A lot of people just want to be the biggest bank. We do want to be bigger. We do want to grow. At the same time, I don't want to be big just to be big. I want people to really like us, use us, respect us, and that we give something to them, and we give something back to the community. I mean, it's got to be a sharing deal. But I really feel like we still have this dream, and even when I'm gone, I'm hoping that the culture that I built with all the younger people that we're putting in right now. Mm-hmm. That will go follow through too, because I'm hoping that they'll take it to the next level if something happens to me or if I go. But I really do. I'm not through yet. I'm like you said, I'm still competitive. Yes. I really want to make something happen. I think what makes this so special is that, a lot of banks go out and they just buy a bank or merge with a bank, and they let those people go. And we are the complete opposite. I mentioned to you Ned Holmes a while ago. One of our first deals, he's still on the board. Tim Tamanis, he's one of our top 4 guys, Kevin Hannigan in Legacy, which was a $10 billion deal. He's one of our major. Eddie Zaffety, who we bought. Most of our management team is really made up of people that have joined us. I call us a bank of immigrants. So
well, and I'll tell you, I work with a lot of banks because of the nature of this job. And I mentioned Prosperity Bank, and I mentioned David, and they all have high respect.
Yes.
That's a really good bank. They're really good people. And so I wanted to share that with you because that has been part of your legacy. And on that note, I want to switch gears now and ask you, for your children, you've got grandchildren, and I've seen pictures of those grandbabies. And I've never seen David smile the way he does when he's got those grandkiddos. But what do you want your legacy to be, especially for the grandbabies?
I think what I really want is my legacy for people to know that I grew up, I worked hard, I was competitive, I fought the fight, I challenged myself every day, and that what we did, hopefully we didn't make too many wrong decisions, and hopefully that we helped a lot of people in the process and built something that's lasting, that's going to help a lot of people for the future going forward. It's crazy, my favorite film of all time was the deal with Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
He's a banker in a savings and loan, and it's so cornball, but it's so good. It's one of my favorite movies. I watch it sometimes 2 or 3 times a year.
Yes.
But I just want to leave that legacy that they can be proud of, that we tried hard, we were honest, we accomplished things, we fought, we lost some, but we won a whole lot more. That we were just competitors and we were really out there, and to be respected for what we did and what we gave to the community, really.
Well, on behalf of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we want to congratulate you for being our Houston legend.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's very flattering.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on KHOU 11. Thank you.